Good evening. I am Love, and we are the Who Do Me Bucket. We're all dead, but if you don't know what we do, then keep on living. Anyway, that was just an intro. I haven't done one of these in a while. One of these meaning an episode of my video diary called Not Naked. For personal reasons. You know, I don't want to get into it. But for tonight's episode, I'm going to read an excerpt from a book I'm writing called How to Impress: The Perks of Being a Poser, The Art of Perception, and Learning to Drive. The section from which I'm going to read is The Perks of Being a Poser. And this chapter is titled Christ I'm Nothing Special. And at the beginning of each section, I'd like to add little bits of lyrics or poetry I've written over the years, and I may, at some point, quote other artists, but anyway, here we go. Christ, I'm nothing special, I've just got away with words, and I'm nothing short of heard. I feel so much better when I'm tangled up in her, but I doubt that she's my cure. I'm just begging to get hurt. From the song, Christ, I'm Nothing Special, I Wake Up Joel, Mother Aches, 2014. From a young age, I dreamt of being a healer of sorts. Upon first watching Darren Aronofsky's cult classic Requiem for a Dream 2000, I was inspired to help those struggling with substance abuse and at the same time experience for myself the pains of addiction. Strange as it may sound, I perceived with clarity the potential risks and consequences of using drugs like heroin. Still, I maintained a burning curiosity around its effects. That curiosity was met with equal fear. That curiosity was met with equal fear and a sense of impending doom. Or maybe I should say that curiosity was met equally with fear and a sense of impending doom. That's better. Still editing. After years of self-reflection, I recognized this curiosity and impeccability with regards to addiction as an exercise in Methodism, another prime example being my lifelong affinity for music. At 4, I was shown Tom Hanks' directorial debut, That Thing You Do, 1996, about the overnight success of a Beatles-esque band called the Wonders Oneaters. Immediately, I had to drum. Dad took me to a local music shop and asked if I could experiment with some percussion. Sitting down in front of a kit for the first time, a fresh pair of sticks in hand rivals the embrace of a loved one after a long time apart. Deja vu-like even. As if I'd played it before, I kicked off the somewhat iconic titular song from the film. I'm reminded of the scene in Good Will Hunting, 1997, where Will is talking about how when he looks at a piano he sees nothing more than a bunch of keys, whereas Mozart and Beethoven could just play. In no way am I trying to compare my skills to that of either aforementioned musical geniuses, just making the point that art has always just made sense to me. Over the years I practically learned to be all of the band members as I picked up new instruments every chance I got. My methods extend to my sideburns, which I desperately wanted as a child due to the Wonders frontman's chops. Talk about follow through. What comes next is perhaps the most sensitive subject I'll touch on in this text, far more so than even the most personal deviations I've elaborated on thus far. I'm referring to the phenomenon known as stigmata. Without assuming any special value or superiority, I myself am a stigmatist. This realization has been difficult for me to address even with my closest friends and family, largely due to the social stigma to which it's attached. Typically feeling brushed off or seen as crazy upon bringing it up, I hesitated expressing my feelings and experiences regarding the matter, which led to a precarious internalization of the personally undeniable parallels between myself and what I've resorted to referring to as the Christ archetype. This resulted in paranoia surrounding my imminent crucifixion, as well as much distaste and bitterness toward Christianity, specifically the evil and malicious white men who spiritually raped the globe. My words. Before delving too deep into my personal philosophy on the Christ and subsequent belief structures surrounding him, I'll describe the intricate nature of my stigmatism. Like I aforementioned, as a child I longed to be a spiritual healer. At the time I used the term preacher, though I've grown to detest and reject the word, due to personal associations, in favor of the more fitting practitioner. Somewhere between David Wilkerson and Nicky Cruz, the main subject of the film The Cross and the Switchblade 1970, is a prototype for my ideal path, at least according to the 5-year-old me. My great-aunt Sally, one of my closest and dearest friends, rest in peace, used to preach of her experiences in the streets and on drugs. She swore up and down that Jesus saved her life. I found these tales enticing and inspiring. She would frequently tell me of the healing power of music and how artistic expression is a gift from and reflection of Almighty God. Now, I will not deny that such things certainly had an impact on me, but I maintain that the intuition existed long before my subjection to the gospel. Sally's words and the idea of Christianity led me to using certain terminology to describe certain existential sensations. So as to not contradict the art of Zen, I would not go as far as to say I desired the job of the healer. Rather, I feel it's been beckoning me for as long as I can recall. It's that calling that led me in and out of addiction, relationships, and where I am now, sitting at my desk writing this book. Over the years, I've acquired several remarkable scars, most of which are self-inflicted. You may have already guessed the placement of said cicatrix, but in the spirit of thoroughness, I'll elaborate from the bottom up following a short poem. With dirty fingernails, I force the infection. Swelling and pulsing, I am self-rejection. Remote alienation of body and mind. To treat my disease, I leave neither alive. Alone with this carcass I carry around, with only 2 options, to hell I am bound. Untitled. Roderick Stevens, 2015. I've scars on the tops of both feet from obsessively picking at scabies in a drug-induced psychosis. My left knee from a nasty fall directly on a rock in a drunken stupor. Various spots on my thighs and permanent marks on the center of my chest. Right before my latest stint in the hospital, I cracked my bottom right rib while doing an impression of the father-killing Kylo Ren in front of my father. A few of the most notable are eye-catching cuts on both wrists and inner arms. Let's see. That one. Particularly the left, which has endured a couple dozen stitches from 2 sessions in distinction to separate wounds, all from self-harm and drunken suicide attempts. Beyond physical resemblance lies the archetypical substance of my personal stigmata. Let's talk about symbolism. In my opinion, the decline from faith into fear is mainly due to the literal interpretation of esoteric artifacts, particularly in this case the Bible. I'm not proposing that the so-called good book is entirely symbolic or literal, and that it's my belief that when taken one way or the other, the point is missed entirely. For instance, the ancient proverb, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime," commonly misinterpreted as a Bible verse due to the similarity to biblical ideology, can be reworded to say something like, "Give a man the answers and he'll squander the knowledge. Teach a man to fish for the answers himself and he'll prosper." The point being, it's not about fish. Just like Revelations is not about the earth literally coming to a hellish end, there is and always will be an inner skeptic who can't help but feel that there are people in power, true deceivers if you will, who want religious texts and ideologies to be taken literally in order to keep the war machine turning. The greatest lies the devil ever told were that Jesus was white and an only child. Me. I said that. How many people claim there's the second coming of Jesus Christ? A lot of people, I promise you. Why is it that people see that as a clear sign of insanity, aside from the fact that a lot of people happen to be rather, how should I say this, meek? Simply put, in my opinion, the ignorance and separation inherent with a fearful God complex blinds a person from true relativity. Speaking of relativity, a great mind once said, "Science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind," which raises the question, what is true sight? The internal conflict between intuition and society's description of the world through the fear-mongering propaganda that is modern media, on top of being born into chaos, sickness, and poverty, can really mange a person. Do you see where I'm going with this? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Baskets aren't mangers. The fear, despair, and oppression that the baskets symbolize, on the other hand, ... My previous rigid beliefs, like many people's, were rooted in positive yet absolute idealism. It's nothing new, people projecting their ideas onto others and the world around them. This commonly leads to self-destruction and punishment in the form of hate crimes and war aimed at those who don't fit into the narrow spectrum of such broad strokes. People in this state of mind often live out their days ignorant to the fact that they've, in a sense, turned the mirror in on itself. In this case, my internalizations and subsequent projections catapulted me straight into a paranoid hysteria orbiting the idea that Christianity, for those in power, is merely a system of identification used to pinpoint truly enlightened people and dispose of them by means of social leprosy and or death. For the most part, over time I've grown out of such irrational fear and paranoia, but the concept still bears weight in my mind. To that end, I grade it as being more along the lines of philosophical theology rather than full-fledged conspiracy theory. And that's where I'll leave you for tonight. But if you liked what you read, keep checking back. I'll be posting excerpts in the form of text, and I'll be doing some readings and shit like that. I might play some music and whatever. Alright, have fun. I said, alright, have fun. Fucking remote. Motherfucker.